Hi, welcome back to my channel. I am going to do my Monday Reads video. This is a video that I think I need to do once a week, either every Friday or every Monday. Doing it on the weekend is usually a challenge, so I think Monday might be my best day. And the reason why I say this is because every time I do a wrap-up video, my video is super long because I'm telling you about dozens of books. Whereas if I do a weekly reads video, I can tell you about the books I have read in the last week. Now, if we go from 1 week ago today, I have read 17 books. Yes, I just counted because I didn't know. Okay, those 17 books were the last few books that I read in June, and the first 9 books I have read this month of July. The first book that I want to briefly tell you about is called The German Wife by Kelly Rimmer. Now, this is a Graydon House or Harlequin book, Harlequin Trade Publishing. And we have 1930s Berlin, Germany, but we also have 1950s Huntsville, Alabama. Now, back in 1930s, you have a German soldier named Jürgen Rhodes, I think it was. Yes, Jürgen Rhodes, and he was a rocket engineer, and he became part of Hitler's SS army, and it wasn't by choice. It was, you serve under me or your life is at risk, the life of your wife and the life of your children. Fast forward to 1950s Alabama, and he is now living in the U.S. along with 1,600 other German soldiers, scientists, engineers, doctors, who are now helping America in the ongoing or the up-and-coming space program. But that's who he is, but the book's not about him. The book is about his wife, Sophie, but it's also a story of another woman, and I'm trying to find her name because, her name is Lizzie. So Sophie is Jürgen's wife, comes over from Germany, and now Jürgen is living as a free American, even though he was one of Hitler's soldiers. But then you have Lizzie, who was born in Texas, but because of the Dust Bowl, if you ever want to learn something about a terrible time in history just prior to World War II, it's called the Dust Bowl, and it happened across the Midwest, and it wiped away thousands and thousands, if not millions, of acres of farmland. Well, that's where Lizzie grew up, and because of that, and then there was the Depression, her family lost everything. Well, now, fast forward again, remember, just like we fast forwarded from Berlin, Germany in the 1930s, well, we're thinking of Texas in the 1930s, but now we've jumped ahead into the 1950s. Well, what does Sophie from Berlin and Lizzie from Texas, who are both now living in Huntsville, Alabama in the 1950s, where do their lives intersect? Very, 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 very good book. I don't have it as read yet because I want to get the review up before I post it as read on Goodreads, so that's why I don't have the rating. I think I'm going to go 5 stars because if I'm not mistaken, I've already drafted that review, and I just closed my folder. So the next book I read was Summer on Blackberry Beach, and I had this one as I'm not sure if I may have had this as an audiobook from Hachette Audio, but it's by Belle Calhoune. And I love this book because it was a second book in Mistletoe Main series. And I believe this Mistletoe Main series is going to be a trilogy, so there should be at least one more book. And if I'm not mistaken, I looked it up, I just don't remember what it is. But this was a sweet, sweet love story, and I loved it, and I've talked about this in my June wrap-up, but that was the next book I read in this week's video that we're talking about. Then I read, and this one I am sure of, was Something Blue, and this was by Heather McGovern, and this was also an audiobook from Hachette Audio, and it was basically a wedding is supposed to go on, but the groom's brother doesn't feel that his brother's making a wise decision and he tries to put a stop to that wedding. Or the wedding planner, or where the wedding is taking place, that wedding planner is the bride's best friend. So now she is involved with trying to make her best friend's wedding come off great, and the groom's brother is getting in the way. So therefore, the love story happens between the two of them. The next one I read was Seaglass Summer by Miranda Liasson. Now, I had this one as a print arc, but I also had it as a digital arc, so therefore I read it on my Kindle versus via Kindle text-to-speech. And in this particular story, we have Kit Blakemore, who lost her husband in the war, and when she lost her husband, she and their little boy Oliver moved in with her parents. Well, she's reached a point when she wants to be on her own. She wants to raise Ollie by herself. She wants to get her degree, and she wants to own her own home. Well, meanwhile, her husband had, yes, Goodreads is frozen. I think I recognize that. Her husband had a house that was left to him, and it was in bad condition. And so she goes to try to work on this house, to restore it so that she can sell it. And she's not working on this house by herself. She's working alongside Alex, who was her husband's best friend and who also served in the military with her husband. And this book was very, very emotional, and I'm very glad that I read it. The next book I read was Riding Jane Crow by Miriam Thaggert. And I thought it was going to be a book that was going to talk about influential women who used the railway system, and in the process of so doing, advanced some of the stereotypes and pushed aside some of those things that Black women experienced right when the railway system was taking off. Well, that's not what I read. I read a dissertation slash thesis slash lecture type book that would be great if you were teaching a history class, because it was stock full of footnotes. And even though this book did not appeal to me on many levels, I highly respect the author, because the research she did was impeccable. And not only did the research prove impeccable, but even the Kindle book that I read was full of pictures. So you could see a lot of the things that this book was bringing out. And that's why I gave this book 3 stars, because even though I didn't really like the book for a lot of reasons, I loved the pictures, I loved the footnotes, and I loved the proof that the author did research. And the other thing that made this book a little different is Black women who rode on transportation, this form of transportation, when it was becoming the main method of travel, were treated very, very poorly. And so there was one particular person who rode the train as a man so that she could have more freedoms. And then this book segued into transgender at that time in history. And it was, I don't know, it left a lot to be desired. Then I read Ali Cross, The Secret Detective by James Patterson, and it's the 3rd book in the Ali Cross series. And I love this little series. It's middle grade. Kids, if you like mystery and if you like series, this book will definitely appeal to you. Like if you were to look at the Percy Jackson series, for example, that is fantasy and it's action and it's this doesn't have that flavor. This is a kid who wants to be a detective like his famous father, Alex Cross. Then I read Heads on Fire by Elira Nicole Ramirez. And this book was it was another not favorite book. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and Goodreads is acting hinky right now. But I ended up liking this book, even though I found that there were some areas where it could have been a stronger book. But it ended up being a pretty decent book. And it's got a very high rating on Amazon. On Goodreads, it averages 4.71, but there's only 7 reviews, so mostly everybody else liked the book. And I don't have my review up, although I did write it. But what was in this book was a romance between someone named Nova and someone named Jax. And they had a one night stand, but he had some impact on her business that she was running with her best friend. So the question comes up, how could she handle somebody that she was going to have a brief fling with when their business gets in the way? That was Heads on Fire. Then I started off I started off July really strong because I started off with Dog Friendly by Victoria Schafer. And just look at the book cover. That alone will tell you that this book is very, very good. If you love dogs, even if you're not a dog person, you just may be after you read this story. And if I haven't already made the video on this, tomorrow is the day I do plan on making all of these videos. Then I read The Shoe Story by Jane L. Rosen, and here we have a woman who, just when her life was about to get started, she was graduating college, her and her boyfriend Liam were going to be renting an apartment in Manhattan, and she got a job at an art gallery. But she also got something else, a terrible notice, either it was a phone call or someone knocked on her door, but bottom line is, there was a tragic car accident. Her mother was killed and her father was left as a quadriplegic as a result of that accident. Not only that, but her father no longer spoke since that accident. Well, she left all of her plans and devoted every bit of her energy towards taking care of her father. And she nursed him until he passed away 7 years later. All of his needs she met because his life was never the same after becoming completely paralyzed in that accident. Well, now that her father is gone, she decides to take some time away, and she ends up in Manhattan dog sitting. And she meets a couple of very interesting people. One is Cy, an older grandfather type figure who had stories, and his stories really helped her to mold where her life was going to go from then on. But there was also someone else that she met, and this person is someone where, wait a minute, I might have a chance of a future with this person. His name was Zach. But what about Liam? Remember, she was going to get an apartment with Liam before the car accident? Well, does she get closure with Liam? Really, really good book. I loved it. Then I read The Book of Awesome Black Women by M.J. Fievre, and it looks like I got a terrible typo because I said it says The Book of Awesome Black Worm, so let's fix that. Not that anybody's going to see my spreadsheet. But anyway, this book was really good because it was all about sheroes. Countless Black women who made a huge impact on American history are talked about in this book. Katherine Johnson, a mathematician who was a huge factor in the space program. Simone Biles, the greatest of all time athlete. The Venus and Serena Williams. Michelle Obama. Lena Horne, Billie Holiday. I think even Rosa Parks was mentioned in this book. Excellent, excellent, excellent book. Makes me want to read Hidden Figures. I am definitely going to be reading that book as soon as I can. Then I read the fourth book in the Flora Steele mystery series, which is a cozy mystery series. And this was Murder at the Priory Hotel by Merryn Allingham. Now, basically, the Priory Hotel has been through some hard times and it's being rejuvenated. And Flora is there with Jack, who is kind of her love interest, but we don't quite know how things are going with them. A murder takes place at that hotel. The lead singer falls dead, a female singer. Was it a heart attack? Was it an electrical issue? What happened? Well, Flora realizes that it's murder, and there are suspects are the people that are either involved with the hotel or with the musical that is going on. So that was a really good book. Oh my gosh. Then I read An Orphan Song, which is, I believe, the third book in the Schilling Orphanage series by Lizzie Page. I love this series. And I tell you, this is a series that I think one day when my queue slows down a little bit, that I want to read all the books in the series again. I just want to sit in this recliner, grab a cup of tea or coffee, and read the series over because it gives you that warm of a place in your heart. Now, we have Clara, who is the house mistress to these orphans. And each book does stand well on its own, but the series is so amazing. This is definitely getting 5 stars. I don't think any of these that I'm talking about, I've done these videos or written reviews. I am a little bit behind. So that was an Orphan Song. And one of my favorite characters in the second book in the series, Evelyn, was in this third book. And I'm really glad about that. So the next book I read was A Perfect Stranger by Shalini Boland. And this was a great psychological thriller. And let me tell you, if you look at the cover, and the cover alone gives you an idea that things are going to be a little bit hinky in this book. And I just want to bring it up because I don't have the cover ready. Stranger. Shalini Boland writes these amazing psychological thrillers, and that's exactly what she did in this book. And in this book, I have it as a digital arc, but we have 2 marriages, 3 little lies, and 1 person dies. That's all I'm going to say. You'll just have to wait for the video and for the written review. Then I had the Wisteria. Well, it was the Wisteria Tree of Love, but I think that was changed. The title was changed, so let's find out what the corrected title is. The Wisteria Tree Cottage. It was the second book in the Wishing Wood series by Holly Martin. I loved the first book. You have 3 brothers, and I think they are Heath, River, and Bear. And the first book in the series, which was The Blossom Tree of Dreams, was River's story. River's story, and this book here is Bear's story and how he found the woman that he should be with forever, and her name is Meadow. Very romantic story. And I think the third book will be Heath, the third brother. Love this series by Holly Martin. And the third book is a Christmas book, but it comes out in October, and I can't wait to read it. Then I read Truly Madly Amy by Kerry Wilkinson, and I got this as an audiobook arc. I did go ahead and download the digital one because I wanted to double check something, and so therefore I needed to see the text. But Truly Madly Amy by Kerry Wilkinson was a very good book. It was a slow roll of Joe, who had what is this girl's name? I just read it today. I should know it. Amy. Joe and Amy's story when they were in camp. This reads as YA/NA/WF. Young adult new adult women's fiction. I'm not quite sure how I can categorize it, but it was just a it was a character-driven story about this couple and what happened when they met, how they met, and what happened while they were at camp, with a very short timestamp because they only had so much time that they were going to be together. And if I didn't already say, and I don't think I did, because I'm giving this to you out of order for some weird reason, but I also read The Last Restaurant in Paris, and that one was by Lily Graham, and this was a hard-hitting historical fiction novel. Let me tell you, very, very hard-hitting novel about a woman who found out that her mother was adopted. She digs into her mother's history, and she finds out that her biological grandmother did something that was so... I don't want to judge her, but because of the actions of her grandmother, something happened to her grandmother, which is why her mother got put up for adoption. Very effective historical fiction story by Lily Graham. And that's, like I said, tomorrow I will get all of these videos made, all of these reviews written. That's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So there you have it. The last, 17 books that I read since last week. And when I do my next weekly video, the first book I'll talk about is Her Payback by Emma Talon. So will I read 17 books between now and next Monday? Time will tell. Let's wait and see. So I've got to do a bunch of editing because a couple of times I stumbled over the words and names, and then one time my battery died. So hopefully I'll edit this together properly and get this video up tonight. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.